Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. This is your host, Joel Algie. I am super excited to be with you guys again. We've got another fun show lined up where we're going to look at everything from fake resumes to some terrible LinkedIn content. We've got another expert guest on the show. I have Russell Ayles with me. Russell is the founder and CEO of UNRiVALLED, which is a recruitment agency. And he's been doing that for about a year and a half. And prior to that, had like decades of internal recruitment experience. So I'm super excited to have Russell on the show. And we're about as far as possible away from each other in the world, which is probably for him a good thing. But Russell, welcome to the show, man. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Joel. I see you use the term expert quite loosely on this show then.
Hey, look, if anyone who doesn't know Russell, he is an official top voice. And I'm not talking about one of these LinkedIn like collaborators that got like the little yellow thank you very much. Russell is like actually been recognized. So I'm curious here. Was that something that you knew was coming? Like how did that even happen?
Firstly, I think they're giving them to anyone in Australia. They haven't got much to choose from, so anyone can get one over here.
And then what's the other guy over them? Is it Mitch? Is Mitch over
there?
Yeah,
Mitch is funny, isn't he? Yeah, I like Mitch. He's a funny guy. Now he deserves it. No, look, there's lots of really talented people. It first happened before you got like the little blue check mark next to your name. It was I first got it a couple of years ago. And do you know where it came from? It came from a survey I did and an article I wrote on the ATS. So way back when I was doing career coaching, so past recruitment, before I started my agency, I was doing a bit of career coaching, kind of COVID times, wasn't it? So, I had to be kind of quite imaginative to think, okay, how can I provide and how can I, get money in really? Because I wasn't quite sure the direction I was going in right there. But yeah, it's at that time when a lot of people started to post on LinkedIn, didn't they, in sort of 2020. And I started to see all this ATS BS basically. And it's really frustrating. And I thought, nobody listens to me because I can say, look, I've got 20 years experience in recruitment. This is not what an ATS does. I've used 13, 14 different ATS. I've been part of teams that have implemented ATS into big retailers when I was working in-house back in the UK. But people don't believe you because they're like, but my friend Mark said that he got rejected straight away. So it must be a robot. And I was like, so I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I thought I'm going to create a survey, I think it's just on like SurveyMonkey or whatever it's called. I'm going to create a survey, send it out to as many recruiters as I can from around the world. So, I'm talking like Europe, US, I think it's like some in the Far East, some in like Dubai. Yeah, those sort of markets. So as far spread as possible. And I can't remember how many responses I got. I think it was not quite 1,000, but it was in the late hundreds. I just gave people loads of options around kind of, firstly, what ATS do you use? Does it do this? Does it do that? Basically, does it accept a Word document or a PDF? Or does it need to be one or the other or both? Or does it auto reject? Do you use the auto reject field? So, and it kind of came out. I put it in my article. So if anyone's interested, go on my profile, look at my articles, and it's there. And it got picked up by LinkedIn. So Kayla Dengate, who's the senior editor for LinkedIn News in Australia, saw it and she's like, oh, I'm really glad you put this work together. We've been seeing a lot of people talking about this subject, and I think that's when they first noticed me and maybe just kept an eye on what I was doing. And that following year, I got given a LinkedIn top voice, and then it's kind of carried on. I'm just waiting for the day they take it away from me because I don't post as much as I should do or something. But that's the thing. It kind of does it
put like a weird pressure on you?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I try not to be stupid, isn't it? I'm quite controversial by nature. I probably don't write what I want to write on LinkedIn, but no, I want to keep it professional because look, I run my own business, so I want to keep it professional. I want to kind of be truthful, keep it professional. But it does put this weird pressure on you. And I'll be honest with you. Recently, I dread LinkedIn. I wake up in the morning thinking, all right, I'm going to post. I'll do it. I'll try and I sit down every morning to post. And I'll probably end up doing it once a week at the moment because I do put pressure on myself. I think every post has got to be amazing. And and I think that pressure does come from having that kind of LinkedIn top voice. It's like, if I don't put out good content or not enough content, they're just going to take it away. And then I'm like, well, who cares if they take it away? But then I'm like, well, maybe I do care because I'm quite proud of it. When I first got it a couple of years ago, I was really pleased because I'd put a lot of effort into LinkedIn and trying to put out good content and, stuff that educated job seekers, especially. That's slightly changed now because, I do want to talk to job seekers, but I also want to try and talk to, kind of retail businesses, HR managers who are my kind of target market for my business. So it's kind of, maybe that message has got mixed, but yeah, in short, a bit of pressure, but yeah, I try not to think about it like that.
Yeah, and I was looking at your profile too. I mean, you were a TA manager for 3 years at House of Fraser, and you implemented 3 ATS. Says implemented 3 new ATS, improved the time to hire and reduced agency spend. So what I love is when people are talking about the ATS and they've actually done research, right? Because when you're implementing a new ATS, you got to research, hey, what ATS are we going to get? You got to see what all the features are, and then implementation of a new technology. Whether it's an ATS, an HRIS system, it's a lot of work. You got to train people up on it. You've got to change your processes. There's a whole lot in there, and so I think it's great when people who are actually working within ATSs and have gone as far as implementing and choosing which ATSs to work from. That's who job seekers need to hear from. They don't really need to hear from the kind of the random person that's hitting them with fear about a robot rejecting their resume or whatever other kind of nonsense there is out there. Although we're going to look at a few probably interesting stories which have happened recently in the last week. But before we do that, you own your own agency. So give us like the 30 seconds to a minute kind of not pitch on the agency, but just tell us a little bit about what your agency does,
Yeah.
and how you got to this point.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly whilst you were talking about the ATS. Do you know, funnily enough, whenever we looked at what ATS to go for, and we got pitched loads of different ATS, and everything that we looked at, and this is including the team and the recruiters that were like more hands-on with the ATS. The first thing we looked at, the most important thing was how easy is it for candidates? How easy is it for candidates to apply, to go through the process? How many steps are there? You don't want too many steps. We never thought about, is this going to, save us time from kind of, eliminating candidates or using, AI. Back then, I guess AI didn't really exist. This is like 2015, 16, I think. But yeah, we always looked at it actually from a candidate point of view, thinking, is this easy for a candidate? But yeah, look, onto our business.
So you didn't go with Workday then?
Do you know what? When I was at ASOS, so ASOS is a massive. It's pretty international, but massive in the UK. It's an online fashion retailer, massive. It's got like 3,000 people at their head office in London. They were implementing Workday when I went on a contract, and they were implementing Workday, and it was honestly it was awful. Nobody could just get their head around it. It was honestly, that was one of the toughest times I've had, and it was partly down to Workday.
Well, it's a running joke now, isn't it, with just Workday? Like I feel like out of every ATS, they get the worst publicity, but they're still, they're a market leader in what they do. So somehow,
well, it's more of an HRIS, isn't it? I think that was the problem. I think because we got it so it could do everything, and it does everything, but it doesn't do anything very well. It does everything okay. It's very rigid.
It's like your uncle that can just do all those improvement projects, but it's never really great, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Everything's going to be a little bit wonky, but it's going to stay. It's going to stand up for about a year.
I love it.
But yeah, look, sorry, the business. So like you said, I actually started off in agency back in London for kind of 8-9 years from the mid 2000s, and then went in house. So mainly kind of fashion retailers, department stores, working in house, head office recruitment, managing those teams. Came over to Australia, got another in-house job, and then COVID hit, lost my job, did a bit of career coaching, and then I was kind of like at a bit of a crossroads. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I thought, I love recruitment. I can't see the career coaching as a business model, but what I can see is, agencies, in my opinion, hadn't really evolved much in the kind of 15 years that I'd been, sort of been in agency and then in-house. So I thought, what, I think I can do it better, or at least give a better service, try and do things better. So yeah, my agency, UNRiVALLED Agency, is we specialise in retail, fashion, and e-commerce all across Australia. Looking to expand hopefully into the UK. Down the line, maybe even into the US. I think there's not going to be any kind of barriers for us in terms of where we want to go. But I think the UK market makes sense for us because I know the UK market very well. Obviously, the Australian market makes sense because I live in Australia. But no, look, we've got some brilliant clients. I'm loving what we're doing. Running a business is probably harder than I thought it would be. I probably thought there'd be more growth by now because you get, as you all know, running your own business, you do get bogged down in the day-to-day, and those grand plans you have just get put off and put off and put off. You have to be very structured. You have to be very disciplined, which I've never really been, because I've always been a bit of a kind of, go to this and go to this and go to this. Oh, so it's a shiny thing over there, I'll go for that. So I've, tried to sort of, improve myself and kind of get better at certain things. So look, it's been a journey, but I'm loving every second. I would not change it for the world. I love working for myself.
Yeah, I love it. And you've been doing that for about what, a year and a half now?
Yeah, about that.
Love it. Well, look, hey, like you said, owning your own business. I think there's a lot of surprises. It's definitely not what you think it is when when you scroll in social media and what people make it out to be.
No.
But also, like, it's always, I think in that first 5 years, it's like almost like early days still, right? And it's like, I think you always have to put things in perspective of like, hey, I've been, even if you've been doing it for a year or 2 years, 3 years, relatively early. And, a lot of businesses fail within the first year even. So I always look at it as like just a learning process. And then I think with recruitment, so many things are changing and so many things are shifting that if you're running a small business, just being agile is so key. And like, like you said, getting creative with the things that you offer, being competitive. So I love that. Well, I want to get into some of these things that are going on right now with job search, with the market as a whole. And I want to start with, and we were going back and forth with just like, who should we roast? It's friendly, but I want to start off with a special person that's apparently one of the best job seekers in the world. And I'm gonna share my screen here. And for any of you guys who are on Instagram, I actually, it's funny with Jerry Lee, who he's basically the CEO and founder, or one of the founders of a company called WonSulting. I'm actually blocked by Jerry on like 3 social media platforms. I don't think on Instagram, but definitely on TikTok.
I was going to say, is this your burner account you've got access to then?
Yeah, no, I don't think I haven't done anything. I haven't really kind of messed with him in a while. But for those of you guys who don't know WonSulting, it's like a career coaching. I will say these guys, so it's Jerry and Jonathan, they are master marketers. Like if there's one thing that they have nailed, it is they know how to do social media. They know how to get views. They know how to get followers, and they're highly skilled at that. But as you'll see, some of the tactics they use are interesting. So I'm gonna play this video from Instagram, and then we're gonna have a chat about this. So let me just play.
Browsing r/recruiting hub, and I came across this post.
Here, let me get this from the beginning here. Let me see how I can do this. I'm gonna okay, here we go. You ready?
100 jobs using a resume with the name Kiss My Nuts, and you're not going to believe how many interviews we got. It all started when I was browsing r/recruiting hub, and I came across this post. Angelina is claiming that she has a resume that got a 90% interview rate. There's absolutely no way that's possible. So put on your recruiter hat. Let's take a look together. Good experience, because they have brand name companies, good education at UC Berkeley, and solid bullet points. Believable, right? Wrong. Look closer. Expert in Node.js, React AI, and Mia Khalifa spread herpes STDs to 60% of intern team. No wonder Microsoft Edge sucks. Fraternity record for most vodka shots in one night. Honestly, not bad. Despite all this, they still got interviews. Atlassian, Airtable, Reddit, and more. Even crazier, they didn't even read her reply email. She even called those bullet points out on an email, and they still didn't see the red flags. So this got me thinking, what if we push this to the limits? What if we made the name so ridiculous that no one would believe it? The bullet points so crazy that no sane person would have. Well, there's only one way to find out.
All right, so Kiss My Nuts, part 1, right? And then this is I'm gonna move to let me stop sharing. I'm gonna share another screen here. I'm not gonna show part 2 of the video, but you can see what he's doing, right? He's created this like fake resume and basically put on there a ton of companies that people would, I guess, want to recruit from. And so this is the Kiss 'em, I can't even say it, Kiss My Nuts. I keep wanting to say it's Kiss These Nuts.
What does the D stand for?
D's, Kiss 'em a D's nuts. I don't know, but Kiss My Nuts is here, and like you go right down to the bottom of the skill section, which is hilarious because I always tell people to put skills at the bottom. We've got some of the skills include arson, just Mia Khalifa, which is just hilarious. But then we've got fintech and adult entertainment industries, which is probably where the Mia Khalifa comes from. Not sure where the arson comes from. But then look, you have the Instagram, you got Google, Amazon, dorm room fund, whatever that is. So, and Jerry posted this one on Twitter, and you could see, I mean, dude, this has 15 million views, which is kind of going back to that social media. Really, really smart. But this way it says, I applied to 100 jobs using a resume, kiss my nuts. And I got 29 interviews. So that's like a 29% response rate, which is massive into today's market. So let me stop sharing here. Russell, like, what's your first, like, had you seen this before I sent it to you? I'm sure you'd seen it.
No, I hadn't.
Okay, right.
What's he trying to achieve? What's he trying to say? That recruiters don't read every single part of every single resume? Because I mean, yeah, that's true. I don't think you do. When they're saying 90% interview rate, is that a telephone screen? Because again, look, if you're recruiting, if you're going through lots of resumes, you're trying to find somebody for a role, and you do see certain companies on there. Look, if you're recruiting for an Amazon and you see Google on the resume, you're probably going to think, I want to speak to this person. And you're not going to go through every single bit of that resume. It will come out in the end, won't it? But I'm just trying to work out what point he's trying to make. Is he trying to make the point that people just go for big company names and don't read the whole of the resume? I mean, yeah. Look, it could just be, there's bad recruiters out there. There's good recruiters and bad recruiters. There's people that read all of the resume, people that read some of it. Yeah, I don't know. What point do you think he's trying to make?
Man, I think like his business is like, resume writing and job search and career. So I think the point that he's trying to make with this is recruiters aren't reading the full resume. You got to be, you got to include what keywords on there. I mean, like
it depends what point though, doesn't it? It depends at what point, when you first apply, to get that telephone call.
Yeah.
The recruiter's probably not read your whole resume. They've probably seen enough to think, okay, this person's worth talking to. If I'm recruiting for, I don't know, I'll try and put it in American, like what are two big retailers out there? It doesn't matter. But if I'm recruiting for a big retailer and this person's worked in a similar capacity, similar role, and their background is 2 or 3 different retailers, I'm probably not going to read every single detail of their resume, because I'm probably going to think, yeah, going to speak to this person. They look great on paper. I want to find out more. I want to find out more about them, and I'll speak to them to get that. Once I speak to them on the phone and I've got their resume up in front of me and I'm talking through with them, I might notice it then. But yeah, I think there's plenty of 50-50 chance.
I will say though, okay, so under Google, let me share this so we can look at it together, because I actually hadn't looked at it. We're kind of discovering this together, which I like, right? I like doing this. Okay. So
also, there's a chance he could just be lying and doing this for 15 million views, which I think is probably the most likely thing. Is
well, he did. I think he had in part 2. He shows emails that he got from companies. So he shows like the screening calls, but this one right here helped utilize Google's computing resources to mine 15 million of Ethereum before getting caught and returning it, and then and on Amazon, enhanced to 300% an average coffee break time obtained by nonstop crying in the main office room. So look, I think I'm pretty sure, because it's been circling around on LinkedIn. Like he does have like proof that he was getting phone screens, and I look at this like, okay, as a job seeker, what does this mean to me? And I think it means exactly what your point was, which is, and this is something I've kind of come to terms with, because I give a lot of advice around, resume and what you should do. And I'm always like, paint a picture of what you've done, give context, give scope to the work. And what I've realized, and because I used to be really counter, like, make sure that you read the job description and get all these skills and blah, blah, blah keywords. I'm just like, focus on yourself, focus on painting the picture of what you've done, and then make sure you're applying for jobs that make sense, right? The problem is I think this is the kind of state of talent acquisition that we're in, where right now, these companies, especially with like white collar corporate positions, they're getting so many applicants in that, if for one of these jobs, because I know he's applying for big companies. So let's say he applied for a job at Meta and you got 2,000 resumes. They are probably going to have to be more like keyword and like companies, and they're probably going to just be more basic in the filtering that they're doing. But also, like, they're not going to expect somebody to put 300 hours of cry time in the room, right? They're probably looking at Google, Instagram, seeing those big names, looking at it and going, okay, that's a good resume. And so I think if I'm a job seeker, I'm just thinking like, yes, the keywords are important, but it's also, this is why the job search is hard, because you just never know who's on the other end. You don't know what that talent team's looking for. But I think why it kind of becomes detrimental is obviously we have like a lot of like more experienced recruiters who do take the time to look at resumes and will spend that time. And so it can kind of just, I think it just kind of harms it can just make the recruitment industry then look like, hold on a second, why, how did this get through? Obviously you're not reading the whole resume. So I don't know. I think it's a good brand. It's a good way to go viral, but I'm not really sure how that's helping his business or really anyone in general. Like, I don't know how I don't know what points I get out of that,
I think, look, I totally get it. And there's probably job seekers looking at that thinking, Jesus, how am I, if they're not reading the CVs, then what sort of chance do I have? No wonder I'm getting rejected. They're not reading my resume properly because I've got the skills for the job. They're obviously not reading it, because I think the majority of job seekers, whether they have the right experiences or not, truly believe when they apply for a job that they are suitable for that job. But I also think there's so many different reasons why this resume is getting through. It could just be an inexperienced admin that's doing the initial screening. It could just be, I think the most likely thing is, and I can't remember where I saw this, it's on another podcast, and it doesn't really matter. But if I said to you, just take 10 seconds to look around the room that you're in and count how many objects in that room are red. So if I give you 10 seconds, just have a look around your room, Joel, and count how many red items are in that room.
In my room right now.
Yeah. Just have a quick look around, 5-10 seconds. Count how many red things are in that room.
Yep.
How many red things are in that room?
About 5.
Okay. How many yellow things are in that room without looking?
No clue.
Exactly, because you were looking for red things. And I think it's the same with recruiters on a CV. So when you look at the CV, you're so focused on looking for certain skills and experiences, you sometimes don't see the other stuff. It's a bit grey, it's like just like blur and white noise. And I think there's an element of that also. I think, recruitment teams are typically understaffed, overstretched, stressed out, because whenever there's redundancies in a business, recruiters go first, because it's kind of they think, well, we're not going to be recruiting, so we don't need the recruiters. And then obviously when things turn around, quick, we need recruiters again. And, it's a bit of a stressful industry to be in. But typically, internal recruitment teams, you're not set up for your maximum capacity. You're set up for your lowest capacity. So, if you normally recruit 250 roles a year, you're set up probably to recruit 200 roles a year, rather than 300 roles a year. So you're always lean as a team. So you're overworked, you're looking at, CV after CV, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to just be looking for the things that you're looking for, not the things that you're not looking for. So I do have a bit of sympathy, but look, maybe let's reflect. Maybe it does highlight.
Let's take a look at part 2 here, because I didn't actually know you had part 2 posted, but I'm curious to see. Let's just see how this all plays out. Maybe he'll even show the companies here, and then maybe he'll give some more context. Yeah, because he says, you won't believe these results. This time we're crafting a resume that's both impressive and believable enough to make recruiters do a double take, but with a twist. We're testing it to see if recruiters notice the details. So that's what he's trying to prove. So let's just see this part. All right, can you hear it?
Using a resume with the name Kiss My Nuts. This is the plan. Step 1, make a resume. We need to make a resume that's both impressive and believable enough to land us interviews. But we're going to make it a little bit soft to see if recruiters get thrown off by it. Step 2, apply to 100 jobs. We're going to apply to 100 jobs to see how many interviews we get. And step 3, assess the results. Because we're trying to see, do recruiters actually read the resume? Let's get it started. I want to use a name for the resume so crazy that when they say it out loud, they're going to be like, no way, that's real. Yo, that's such a funny name. His name's Samsung. And then this guy's name is P. Ennis. Yo, I found it. All right, so I'm going to ask my girlfriend, Elaine, to see if she knows this person. Do you know my friend?
This is insane.
Kisman. So now we've decided on a name, Kisma D Nuts. Now onto the content of the resume. We've been at this for some time now, and we finally have a finished product. And comment down what you think about this resume. I'm gonna give you 6 seconds. Would you give this person an interview?
All right. So he doesn't. There must be like a part 3 of this, but obviously he's.
I think
basically
when you sent it to me, I think he's got about 20 different parts to it. You never really see much of an outcome when I went through, because I saw his reels.
You
and
went
it was-
through the
there-
whole
there-
kiss my nuts. You went through the whole.
Well,
series.
yeah, exactly. And well, no, there's about 15, 16, 17 of them. And, I went to that one and then that one. And I didn't really, they all said the same thing. It's like he's building up and building up and building up. But I didn't see an outcome. Maybe I think you have, but I didn't.
No, I mean, somebody sent me like the companies that got back, but look, I think the point is right. It's like people aren't gonna recruiter isn't necessarily gonna read every single point, but I think all that emphasizes to me is this is what I tell people. I'm like, you got to make sure each line in your resume has a reason for being on your resume, and I always default to like make sure just each line has as much impact as possible for the job you're applying to. And I think of it like anything, like any type of content, whether it's an email, a sales email, whether it's a candidate message, whether it's a piece of content on LinkedIn. It's almost like you just got to make sure like you're being as impactful as quickly as possible. And like, think about like, if you had 20 seconds to read this resume, is there enough there to like, that person's going to go, yeah, I want to call this person for the job. And I think that's almost like what I walk away from that is like, they're not going to look at every single detail. So what are the most important details that you want them to see and you want the recruiter to see? And how do you get them to see that enough to give you a call, right? That's what I take away from that.
Yeah. And the thing is, look, I think you could debate resumes all day because there's so many, it's so nuanced. There's so many dependables. It's like, I've had candidates go for interview that didn't have an updated resume just because of the companies they'd worked at. They'd worked at competitors. They were doing the same sort of job. I just spoke to the client. They didn't really need to even see a resume. But then there's some situations when, yeah, your resume really counts. So that might be kind of either entry-level roles or roles where, you maybe not an exact match, or, you've not worked at like companies and you need to, you're in that kind of pool of the recruiter sitting there thinking, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether to speak to them or not. I'm seeing this, but I'm not seeing that. That's the time when you've got to really make the most of your resume. So it really depends,
It really does. That's why it's like, I've been telling people recently, like, just try lots of different things and whatever's working for you, double down on that, right? And even if it's like, honestly, some of the recruiter resumes that I see, they're some of the worst ones. And I'm like, look, be really specific, talk about the metrics that you're responsible for. Don't just describe the job you were doing. All right, I wanna move on. So this next piece of news, this one is from the other day. So I just want to get your reactions on this. And this is actually a video that I did. So I'm gonna play it. Let me turn the audio on. All right. In case we need any more proof that executives are completely out of touch
It's weird
with reality,
video.
we have this article appearing today where Elon Musk is literally asking for $56 billion. Now, look, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, it's $56 billion. Who cares? But look, Tesla just laid off like 14,000 employees earlier this week. So you have Tesla employees all over LinkedIn saying how tough it's been and how hard it is. And what are they going to do now? It's a tough job market. And then you have Elon Musk asking for $56 billion. If this doesn't show the division between CEOs and executives and regular people and what this divide has become in 2024, I don't know what else does. CEOs and executives are literally getting incentivized to lay thousands of people off so they can make billions of dollars. This is why I always say, you do not owe. I'm not going to play the whole video. Okay, did you see this news? And a couple of people, I posted this one on LinkedIn too, and they've kind of cleared it up. Like, this is just his pay, like over the last 4 or 5 years. But I'm like, why? Like, how can you get that timing so bad where you like lay off 14,000 people and then that's the next couple of days this is in the news? So what are your thoughts on this? Like, when you see headlines like that, what kind of goes through your mind?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any. I think most execs and CEOs of big businesses are so out of touch. I don't think they care. I don't think they care much about their workforce. They care about profit, which, look, fine. If that's what they want to care about, then they're running the business. they care about profitability, so let them care about it. But then, I think people and I think people have got to be a bit wiser to it and just try not to work for businesses like that. I honestly, I look at it nowadays and can't believe there's not more people going self-employed in a lot of industries, because I just think, you just hear of all these things and see all these things, and working for other people just doesn't make sense for me. People think being self-employed is, there's no job security. Yeah, it's too risky. No, it's not at all. You're fully in control of what you do. And, I feel more in control now. And yeah, it took a while for me to feel like this, but I feel more in control now running my own business, even though, I've got another kid in the way and I'm like, stressing out thinking, is the business going to make enough
It's number
money?
two,
I want to do
right?
this, I want to do
Number
that.
two.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Congrats,
Number 2.
by the way.
Cheers, mate.
That's exciting.
And but yeah, and I think, well, actually, I've been made redundant before, and have I really ever felt safe and secure in a role? No, not really. So look, I mean, it doesn't surprise me when you see this sort of stuff. It doesn't surprise me, and you sort of think, why can't? Does he have to? Yeah, okay, that's money that's owed to it. Does he need to take it? Does he need that money? Okay, he might. Technically he's entitled to it, but surely can't he pump some of that back into the business to make, to try and reduce some of the redundancies? Or I don't know.
It's just, I think what's crazy to me is, like, obviously we're in like talent acquisition and HR, right? And one of the biggest things that ever since I've been in the business, that like you just taught like, or the people like, especially like internal teams, like when you're working with an internal team, obviously as an agency recruiter, it's like, well, what's your EVP? Like, why would someone work here? And it's just always been like, we have a great culture and this and that. And it's less like, I just feel like these headlines keep coming out, and I'm like, how, like, it's just like corporate trust is just so low, but yet like there's still this like weird game that we play in like interviews, right? And I've been doing videos on TikTok, like, here's stuff you should just lie about in an interview, because it's like, because the company's kind of lying as well. It's like, Tesla, like 6 months ago, probably like, yeah, we want to invest in you for the long term. We want to invest in you. And I don't know. I just like, at what point do we just go, all right, we kind of just know this is just kind of nonsense. And like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm excited about like what the projects I'm working on. But it's about it. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm going to get a deeper sense of like life working with you necessarily. And I just feel like we just get to this point where I just keep seeing these headlines. And I'm like, how, like, if someone interviews with Tesla in the future, like, how are you just going to be like, yeah, like, I really feel like I'm a part of this thing. I don't know what it's just, do you get what I'm saying? Like, as recruiters, like, we're kind of,
Yeah, definitely.
sell 'em,
It's hard because some businesses truly believe in their culture, but it's not what they think it is. And I like clients. I work with a lot of clients that, and 2 or 3 people have said it to me recently, where they say, I say to them, look, what is it like, to work there? What kind of people, seem to do best? And people say, we've just got a bit of a no dickhead policy. We just try and employ, good people. And I think, do you know what? I think that's the best way to put it, because if you just try and, just try and employ good people that are going to be respectful, people that are going to be honest. You don't have to all be kind of best friends at work. But if you've got, 99% of people turning up, being honest, respectful, doing what they say they're going to do, trying to be, trying to be positive, then that culture is going to be pretty good. But whenever I talk to candidates about a role, I'm very realistic with them. I always say to them, look, you've got to look at this role maybe in 2 ways. One is, you could develop with this company, move up, get promotions, be there for, 4, 5, 6 years. But let's be realistic. Most people stay in roles a couple of years now. So after 2 years in this role, what are you going to be able to put on your CV that's going to help you get to the next step with the next company? Are there going to be enough projects? Are you going to, are you expanding your skill set? Are you going to learn new things? Are you going to get involved in projects that you've not done before? Because that, sometimes jobs are stepping stones, and more often than not, they are, aren't they? Because you're there for 2, 3 years. That's got to be the average tenure nowadays, especially in kind of my industries.
What's like that corporate culture like in Australia, in terms of like, I feel like in the US, like it's still like almost like you got to be like bought out for the culture, right? They talk about like the Kool-Aid, right? Like drinking the Kool-Aid of the culture.
Yeah.
And which is kind of like in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm not from the US originally, but I feel like it's kind of like American thing. Like, like you support your team and you wear the jersey, and it's like, I remember my first experience in corporate, it was like they like expected me to go and hang out with people like after work. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. It was like, I was a black sheep immediately because I didn't want to do that. But like, what's the feel in like Australia? Like, is it similar type of thing? It's just a work.
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't think it is similar. I think, look, it's hard. I can't really judge the US. Look, I've not worked there, but the feeling you do get is that it is like as you described it. Look, I think look, it's hard to look. I've been in Australia 5 years. I'm married to one.
Okay.
Aussies. What I love about Aussies is they're straight talking and they're down to earth.
Yeah.
You know, they're if you're being a dickhead, they say stop being a dickhead. You know, it's I've always thought Australia is a weird mix of the UK and the US, but I think, yeah, I don't think that kind of business all-encompassing culture thing is as much of a thing in Australia than it is compared to the US. I think if there's a spectrum, you'd have the US on one end, then the UK, then Australia, probably a bit further away. In my experience, I think the UK is probably a little bit more like the US, but I think that's just because the UK and US has bigger companies and culture is a lot harder to manage in bigger companies. I can only really talk for like retail, fashion, e-com sort of businesses because I know them better over here. But there's a lot more smaller companies out here. So there's a lot more kind of companies of, say, a head office of 50, 60, 70 people. You know, I don't know, maybe sort of 40, 50 stores nationwide, that sort of size. So the culture is a lot more organic out here, I think, because there's a lot of smaller companies. Now, if I recruited for banking or knew more about the sort of large banks over here, it might be different. Maybe it is more corporate, a bit more, as you say, kind of, you know, drink the Kool-Aid. But look, I think company culture is a really hard one because you can try and instill a culture within a business, but unless it's kind of at every single layer of your pyramid, of your structure, in everything you say, you know, in the recruitment process, the interview process, the internal training, it all has to match up, and it's almost impossible to do that. It's really difficult.
Well, I think about it like, how on earth can you have? Because you have like a corporate document, right? Or like, oh, what's your EVP? It's like a paragraph, and you just think, well, there's like hundreds and thousands of possible relationships that you could develop within the company. Like you got your bosses, you got your coworkers, you got your executives, and you have like a different interaction with every single one. And it's like the culmination of all of those relationships and the experiences you have is the culture you experience. But that's going to be different to someone else. And so it's like, I feel like it's a subjective thing that they try and make objective, but then it kind of boils down to then like recruiters like selling people on something. And that was a great conversation at a conference I was at recently where that she had Brittany Peach, who's she recorded her layoff, and she's having a conversation with chief people officer at a company, and they're kind of just discussing this whole like, well, how because her layoff went absolutely viral on.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts, right? And he was just trying to say like, well, why, why was it, why it's so difficult, but like, what was like the process like? And she's like, well, during the interview process, it was actually a long interview process, like months. And they really instilled like, hey, we're here for the long term and we want to invest in you long term. And I went on that company's career page. And if you look at the career page, it's all about like inclusivity and like making you feel welcome and like all this stuff. But then all of the comments from the CEO were like all performance based. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm actually cool if you've got like a hard ass like corporate culture, which is like, hey, we're going to get results, and you don't get results, we cut you. But it's like, why isn't that being talked about more? And I think to your point, it's like, I think that with the culture, it's like you have to get it lined up. And I think that then it's like you don't want people to be selling people on something. You want them to be just communicating like what it's actually like. And I think at least over here, it's become challenging because people have wanted like the metric to be like, well, we've got lots of applicants, we've got lots of people interested, and that's seen as like successful recruiting rather than going, oh, man, we got less applicants, but they're like the right people, and we're kind of telling them up front what things are going to be like. You get what I'm saying? It's like this.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been huge. Instead of going, what can we say not to repel people, but what can we say? Like, I'm sure at that company, if they were like, hey, we give you 3 months, and if you don't hit the goals, like you're cut, no questions asked. Maybe you don't get so many applicants and people going through that process. But the ones who get in, they're like, hey, I know I got 3 months to produce something, and if I don't, I'm out the door. But I don't see anything about that on the website, you know?
No, and I think culture is such a hard thing to control. I don't think you can. It's so hard to control culture, especially in larger businesses. What I do like though is if companies have simple and clear values. So that's not a kind of way of saying, oh, we're all like this. This is why you should join us. We're all like this. This is our culture. But values. So I remember a business I worked for. I think I'm getting their values right, but it doesn't really matter because I'm kind of just more so making a point. And their values were kind of ABC. So it's authenticity, bravery, and creativity. So all they're basically saying is that we want you to be authentic. We want you to be, feel like you can come to work and be yourself. We want people that, are brave. So that just translates as don't be afraid to take risks. We want people that will take risks in projects or, in a day-to-day work, take a risk for a better outcome for the business. And in being creative, creative thinking, people that can, look at a process and think, okay, can this be better? What can we create that's better than this? And I think getting people into a business that can work like, that you're saying, this is how we like to work. Is that how you like to work? Yeah, brilliant. I think that's a better way of looking at it and trying to create this culture. Because even with candidates, well, I speak to loads of candidates every day, of course I do, for lots of different businesses. So you always get asked, what's their culture like? And it's kind of like, I feel like saying, sometimes I feel like people ask it because they think they need to ask it. And it's like, well, what culture are you looking for? And I do that sometimes, just to sort of flip it around, because I'm genuinely interested. And sometimes people really struggle to answer that. So it's almost like, I want to know what our company's culture is like, but I don't know what I want in a culture. And it's like, well, let's face it, I'm not going to tell you it's, because I've not been told this. A company's not going to tell me, oh yeah, it's an awful culture. I wouldn't recommend anybody come and work it. So it's kind of like,
you're going to hear the same things over and over. Hey, we promote people from the inside. We really value hard work and people that get results. And like, okay, well, that's not what Glassdoor says. Yeah, no, it was a couple of people who just.
What do you think of Glassdoor, by the way? Because I actually detest it. I don't like Glassdoor one bit, because I don't think it's a true reflection. I recruit for some businesses on Glassdoor have maybe a very kind of average low 3s or 2.8, and they're actually really good businesses. I've worked for them a while, and I've been into their offices and spoken to people that work there, placed a few people there. But just because they've had a few disgruntled employees or things that happen, and you get that sometimes in smaller companies. It's kind of really affected them. I've had candidates before say, "No, I've looked on Glassdoor and I'm just not sure I want to work in that kind of environment." It's like, it's really difficult to argue that, because they think, well, no, you're just a recruiter. You want to place me in a role. You want to make, so they think I've got something invested in it. I'm trying to say to them, look, I'm going to fill this role, whether it's you or someone else. Don't want to sound like mean, but I'm going to fill the role with somebody. So I'm just trying to be honest and truthful with you. That's not my experience. So yeah, it's difficult. What do you think? Do people really reference Glassdoor in the US?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, I know, even when I've looked at different companies, like I've looked at the Glass. I think I look at the negative reviews as like, let me scope some questions out. Because
let's see if there's common themes in those negative.
Exactly, and instead of going, hey, what's your culture like? I might say something like, if for example they're like, yeah, the work-life balance was terrible and blah 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 blah, then I'm going to ask questions around that work-life balance. And so I think typically what I would encourage someone to do is like, I go, well, look at the Glassdoor, because it's like a Yelp, right? Like, you're only going to really hear the extremes. You're going to see like the people who are like sucking down the Kool-Aid, and you're going to see the people who are just pissed off and hated the company. And the truth is, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. So you've got to look at like, what are those positives as well as negatives, and then come up with some just questions around things that you actually care about. Because some people could care less about work-life balance. They really care about compensation. So if there's something negative about compensation,
doesn't work-life balance mean different things to different people? Work-life balance to you might be different to what it means to me.
Exactly. So but so maybe it's, I need, what's really important to me is I want to take, 2 weeks off in the summertime to go vacation with my family. Like
that's what I forgot you people from the US don't get holidays, do you?
You don't get, you get like 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Honestly, that's like crazy.
Let's just say you need a week with the family in the middle of summer. Like, that's a non-negotiable. Then I'm going to go into that interview and, I'm going to ask that question, like, hey, talk to me about like how you guys manage PTO. Like, what does that look like? And just start asking questions. Or maybe someone makes a comment like, yeah, like, the the executive team was, really judgmental, then I'm going to ask questions about the relationships with executives and like what that looks like. So I think it can be a reference points for questions other than, what could you describe the culture to me? It's like,
Yeah, but do you think candidates are scared to ask these questions though? Because, and I think almost sort of rightly so, because you don't want to be seen as difficult for an interview process. Right? Again, look, rightly or wrongly, I'm not here to say this is right or wrong. But if you do question a lot about these things and like, oh, I've read this, explain yourself. I've read this, explain yourself. Do you think, do you think that's a good thing for candidates to do? Probably somewhere in the middle, isn't it?
Look, I always just try and tell people, like, if you're gonna ask a question, obviously you got to think about how you structure that question, and you don't want it to be like a witch hunt. But you say, hey, one of the things that's really important to me in a company is, work-life balance and spending time with my family. Curious, what's it like in terms of, how you take vacation. I think it's all to do with how you ask it. And,
Yeah, definitely.
But I think there's value in it. But then I also tell the company, like, do you know what's on there? And like, I've recruited for companies before where, granted I'm in more of like an RPO relationship. So I'm like kind of built into the team, but I'm like, hey, look, like, do I need to know something? Because in a lot of these industries, it's kind of small. So if you really have like that VP that's like just known in the industry as someone terrible to work for, and then knowing that you probably have past employees at some of the companies you're trying to recruit in, I'm kind of like, hey, is it actually something that I need to know? Like, just tell me, because even that, for some candidates, that will be something that you can use to like entice them into the role. Like, hey, there's some issues actually going on, but we need somebody that can come in and like help make this better, right? And I think that's something that companies don't like to talk about a lot, but like figuring out like what are some of the challenges in this position. But I think the culture of recruitment, and you see it all the time because people will boil down recruitment and they'll say, well, it's like sales. And what they mean by that, because sales has completely changed in the last couple of years, but what they mean by that is you just got to you highlight all the positives and get them on board no matter what. That's what they mean when they say that, instead of saying like, well, actually we want to inform them of what's going on and give them an accurate picture. And I think, then you wonder why you get into a company and it's like 3 months in, you're like, this is not what I was sold on at all. And it's because that's what they were doing. They were kind of selling you on this stuff instead of thinking, why don't we talk about some of the problems? Why don't we talk about some of the challenges? But again, that's hard because it's like you're looking at self-awareness. I think it's hard for most people to like look at their company and look at some of those things and be able to have a conversation, because they're just afraid they're going to put people off. And instead of thinking, well, they're going to be put off when they see this, how do we kind of actually like find somebody who's ready to handle that? If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, well, look, I wanna end with this video. We got about 5 minutes left here, and so I want to get your take on this one. This one that you sent to me, and I'm fairly familiar with this page.
Oh, it's not the video I sent to you of me in the bath, is it?
Yeah, that is the one. All right, are you ready for this one? All right.
And how to find it. And if you're somebody who's currently looking for a job, this could be life-changing information. So go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna restart this so we get the full thing.
Firstly, what is it like? Because you see, like, before the podcast, we were chatting, weren't we, on LinkedIn, and you're like, oh, have a look for some videos that would be good to talk about. And I did. What is it with like so many of these videos? Why do people put makeup on, or like they're making their lunch or something whilst they're? Is it like a trend that people do this on? I just sound old, don't I? But what is it with it? The amount of videos I saw of people putting on makeup or like doing another task while doing their TikTok, or it's like, is it a thing?
It's called GWRM, like get ready with me. Maybe I got those acronyms wrong, but yeah, it's like a get ready with me video, and it's like people do like makeup and stuff while they're talking. Yeah, I can't get away with any of that. It's like my strategy is just my face, and then I'll zoom every now and again.
Can't you like clean your teeth while you're doing it or something, or like
I don't do anything. Although there's a guy.
Or...
There's a guy now who does magic tricks now while he's doing this stuff.
See, that's unique.
He's doing magic tricks. All right. Well, let's take a look at. Let's just go back to here. So this is Erin. Anyone who's seen Erin's page, we'll let you decide what you think of it. But she is talking about the hidden job market. All right. So how to find and use the hidden job market. Here we go.
So the hidden job market are jobs that aren't advertised formally or publicly, but rather filled internally through the company's network. So why does this matter? Well, a huge portion, maybe even a majority of the job market is currently hidden. For example,
Huge.
I just left the job and now the company has to fill my position. It could promote somebody internally. Maybe they'll go with one of my recommendations. Maybe somebody will approach them. Maybe they'll hire a former employee. But the last thing that they're probably going to do is post a formal job listing.
last
Because
thing.
there's something people need to understand, and that's hiring costs money. First, the last thing companies want to do is post a job listing and having to take all these candidates through a formal process, because that is expensive and time consuming. This is why I always encourage people to reach out directly to companies with your resume, because they are always looking for people, and you reaching out to them does them a favor.
All right. I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like, she just said,
I'm very confused.
just reach out to the company, just to reach out to them. Just send them your resume, because they're always looking for people. Russell, they're always looking for people. Just send.
The thing is, there's slight nuggets of of sense in what she says, but it doesn't make sense. It's like, I'm not going to advertise them, or like I'm not advertising them because they're people internally are getting the jobs. I mean, well, yeah, that's normal. Firstly, if I'm worried if a company doesn't look internally first, if somebody leaves or hands in a notice, firstly, look within the business. Okay, is there anyone that can step up and do this job, or anyone that wants to move into this job? So you might advertise it internal only, but that doesn't change. You know, as an external candidate, just because you send a message into that business, they're not going to suddenly think, oh no, actually screw these internal candidates. Somebody's just sent us a resume directly. It doesn't work like that. And no, I think, as I said to you, didn't I? Look, one of the things I like or wanted to talk about is the hidden job market, just because honestly, I feel like I'm living in a world full of crazy people sometimes, because I just can't get the logic. I can't get why anybody would even believe that 80% or the majority or even a lot of jobs are hidden. What purpose does that serve anyone hiding jobs? Now, look, yeah, of course there's going to be certain occasions when jobs aren't advertised. I don't advertise on my jobs because it's expensive and I might not need to. But I might still advertise them on my website, but I might not advertise them on LinkedIn, because I have 2 or 3 job slots that I utilize. I might have 5 or 6 jobs on, and I might rotate them, so it's not advertised all the time. It might be a confidential search that I might, like very recently I got asked to do a confidential search because there was issues within the business. It was a new position, and they had to manage a situation with somebody else within the business that maybe it wasn't really working with. So you go to an agency and say, look, this is what we're looking for, but we can't advertise. And I still advertise that role because I do it anonymously. Obviously, people don't know who it is I'm recruiting for. So I just can't.
Candidates love those messages too. Those are their favorite.
I just can't understand.
Business, I think it'd be.
Yeah, they do.
What company?
Yeah.
Can't tell you. What's the salary?
Well, no, I could tell them. I just asked them to. I just had a NDA that to sign, which doesn't really stop people, but
No.
it's. But yeah, I just don't. What purpose? Can you tell me? I'll ask you. If it is true that the majority or 80% of jobs are not advertised, why is it of benefit to a company, to an HR department, a talent acquisition team? Why does that benefit them?
Well, look, I think there's a couple instances where like you could get the hidden, but they're not really like hidden in the way that they're deliberately hiding them, right? So you have the one like the confidential, right? Like you don't want to post. You're going to get rid of your marketing director. You don't want to post a job on LinkedIn saying, hey, we're looking for a marketing director, if they don't know. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a replacement for someone who's in the role, and they're going to handle the hard conversation. The other time too, and I think this is like where like as an agency recruiter, I've seen this, is where like you maybe reach out to a contact and you're like, hey, I got some availability, you got any openings kind of thing, it's a buddy that you've worked with or whatever in the past, or a contact that you have. And they're like, oh, actually, we're about to open up XYZ job. And then you're like, well, hey, we could take care of that. And then maybe they don't publicly post it because they're going to go with the agency. But it's just like the frequency of that happening, these are like, this is
5% being generous. In 5% of circumstances, it might be
exactly, because it's like the company in their
generous.
mind, like most companies, they still even have like a big deal for them and like a big KPI is like how many applicants they're getting. Like they will still look at how well a job is doing or how well like that vacancy is doing by how many applicants they're getting. And the only way you can have applicants is if the job's posted on your website, you're using the LinkedIn job posting or the Indeed. So I think when people talk like that, it's definitely very much like a sales pitch. Because for her, like for somebody who I don't actually know what Erin's business model is. I actually don't know what her background is. I think it's actually acting, but a lot of people who are in like the career coaching field, they probably don't want you applying the jobs. They probably want you working with them, right? And so there's like this kind of like fear that they'll put in you of like, oh, well, applying for jobs is, kind of a waste. Don't do it. Whereas like, no, I tell people like, you got to apply to jobs. Yes, you got to network. Yes, you got to do all these other
Yeah.
things. But it's
I
just
th-
fear.
yeah.
It's just fear-based tactics, like hidden job market or like the ATS robot. It's just all from the same narrative. And then when you look at anyone who is actually saying these things, and we talked about this in the last episode or in one of the last episodes, it's like none of these people actually have any background where they've even worked like using LinkedIn recruiters. So I was like, I don't know where they're getting their information from. They've never had that relationship with a hiring manager. And so you've always got to look at that. Like, does this person have they actually legitimately hired or worked with a hiring manager? Let alone if they hired anyone for their own business, because most of these people are like solopreneurs.
I think
Are you going to start
but-
doing
but-
get ready with me videos too? I want to do
Yeah.
that.
No, oh god, honestly, I look awful looking at myself in the video that we've got
You
on
look
here.
great.
I need a bit of makeup, don't I?
You
I'm
look
so
like
used
you're
to
ready.
using.
You look like you're ready to be a parent again.
Honestly, no. I look like I've been a parent too long. I need that. I'm so used to using Zoom, and it gives you that nice little feel. I've done it. Then I'm on a normal video like this, and I'm like, Jesus, I thought I really looked that old.
You look like
No,
a
I've
business owner. You look like a business.
I've always tracked. So historically, I always tracked. Like where how we sourced roles, how we filled roles. And again, I've got an article on my LinkedIn page if anybody wants to see it. And it's always sat around kind of 70-ish% of roles filled. When I was in house tracked it, if I kind of put it into a rough average, it's been around 70% of roles are filled by job applications. And then outside of that, it's kind of headhunting, aka LinkedIn searching, agency, as if I was in house using an agency, and so on. And I recently even asked people like Amy Miller. I asked her because she does what I deem to be really technical stuff, like people to build satellites and amazing stuff like that. And even hers application wise, I think it was around 70%. And I would have expected it to be like, so look, the thing is, the most likely way you're going to get a job is by applying to it. That doesn't mean it's the best way to search for a job. It does, or it doesn't mean it's got the best success rate, I should say. Because if you can get referred to a job, you're probably going to have a better success rate. If you're qualified for a job and get referred by somebody who works there, again, when I was in house, I'd always see people that were referred because we wanted to encourage referrals. And also if somebody in the business referred somebody, you kind of think, okay, they're good, they look qualified as well. You'll definitely see them. You definitely speak to them. So yeah, but it's still the most likely way to get a job. And also, look, recruitment isn't a one-pronged kind of attack. If I'm recruiting for a role, I will advertise it, and I will, headhunt, and I will, use LinkedIn to, and I'll do 4 or 5 different things to try and find and attract that candidate. But yeah, it's that terminology around it. Yeah, look, are all roles advertised? Probably somewhere. Are all roles advertised on LinkedIn? No. Are all roles advertised like over here? You've got Seek is probably the big job board over here. It's expensive, to put one advert up, a premium advert. It's like $700 for a month.
She did say in that video too, like it's expensive, right? I mean, she did mention.
Yeah, and it is, and it is. But it's that. I don't mind if people say some jobs are. I don't even like the term hidden, but even though I said some jobs are hidden, it's the majority, or 80% is that figure thrown around, isn't it? That's what really gets up my arse. Is it's like no, it's not 80%. It's not the majority. Some are, and it's because of a number of obscure reasons. But it's just it's a whole fear tactics, isn't it? It's the same as the ATS. It's rejecting your resume without somebody even looking at it. No, it's not. Can it happen? Of course, it can happen.
Got through. Okay, so kiss him and nuts got
exactly.
through.
Kiss and nuts can get through it, but anyone can get through. But look, the technology's there with ATS, but people don't use it, and it's not very good. And it might happen on the 2% of occasions. It could happen, but it's not normally the case.
100%. Well, look, we're at the time here. So I want to leave. I was just the last question I ask anyone on the podcast, and this is for shout out to my TikTok network, my Instagram network, and who am I kidding? It's my LinkedIn network as well. But if you had one piece of advice from a recruiter's perspective, a recruitment perspective for a job seeker, what is that one piece of golden advice that you'd give people right now?
Oh, wow, you've put me on the spot. One piece of advice for job seekers.
It's got to be a golden nugget.
Golden nugget. No. I want to say, it's probably going to sound hard. But read the job advert. Read the job ad now.
That's great.
I just think, look, this is going to sound so simple. The best chance you've got of getting a job is being qualified for it. I think the more you kind of shoot your shot and the more you kind of try for this and try for that, you're just going to get more rejections, and it's probably going to make you feel a bit sad. But look, I think just being qualified for a job and just, keeping positive. Just remember when you get rejected, whether that's after somebody's looked at your resume or you've had an interview, you're just not right for that specific role. And it's very, very specific. There's so many circumstances that you've been rejected. It might be an internal candidate. It could have been a referral. It could have just been somebody who's got, different systems knowledge, or just, showed a little bit more in the interview than you did. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get that job. But, I've been to loads of interviews and got rejected for businesses that I wouldn't put on par with some of the businesses I've got jobs at, where they're amazing businesses. So that wasn't one golden nugget. Look, just read the job advert and make sure your resume speaks to what they're looking for. There's going to be 4 or 5 things they're looking for. Make sure that that's on your resume, because if it's not, we're not mind readers. I'm not reading between the lines. I'm not assuming. If it's not on your resume, I'm going to assume you don't have that system, that skill, that knowledge, whatever it is.
No, I love that. Look, and I tell people all the time, there's 2 reasons if you're applying to hundreds and thousands of jobs and not hearing back, it's either your resume isn't good, it's not right, and there's something on there, or you're just not applying you're applying for jobs that you're literally not qualified for, which then by default would mean your resume isn't speaking to it. But look, this, I hear it, we see it all the time on LinkedIn, right? Like, shoot your shot, or like hire for attitude and all this other stuff. But in the real world, the way that people are at this current time hiring is, we're going to look at your past experience. We're going to look at the work you've done. And we're going to assume that what you've done in the past is a predictor for what you can do in the future. That's what we're doing.
The best way we can do it so far.
And I think skills-based hiring is going to come in. It's a whole different topic, but we're just not at that point yet, right? So that's great advice. Now, where can people find you? Where's the best place that people can find you? Obviously, we need a LinkedIn type voice.
People can normally find me by the end of the week in the corner, rocking back and forth because I'm shattered. But more so, LinkedIn really. I keep meaning to, I've got a TikTok handle. I won't give it because I don't do anything on TikTok or Instagram. It's just my personal one. So just LinkedIn. Just I think it's just Russell Ayles. I mean, I don't even know what my handle is, mate. I think it's just Russell Ayles.
Russell Ayles.
But yeah, look, I try and give a mixture of kind of advice and bits and pieces on LinkedIn. So some advice for job seekers and just some general kind of musings and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not as hilarious as you, Joel, but I try and do my best.
You're plenty funny to me. Well, look, I'm so glad that we got this time together. I know we've gone a little bit longer than the usual episode. So if you've made it this far and you're listening to the podcast still, we really appreciate you. Stay tuned. Next week, we're going to have another fun conversation. I think next week, we're going to be talking about like CRMs and AI with another couple of English guys. I don't know. It's all international, right?
Who would I? Who are you talking to next week?
We're talking to Hire Genius. It's Gary Eldon, and then I think the CEO of the company is named Daniel. I can't remember his last name, but I don't think they're ready for what this podcast is going to be. I don't think they know that we're going to be sharing screens and looking at TikToks. That's okay. I like that surprise. But I appreciate everybody who's listened. Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can see these episodes on YouTube. And please, please, please do subscribe. If you haven't left a review, leave a review. And I appreciate all of you guys. Once again, Russell, so good to see you. And thank you for your time this morning or this evening, depending on where you're at.